You know how much we love when something seemingly small unlocks a huge understanding of the world? Well, get ready, because we've got a perfect example for you today.
Oh, yeah.
We're diving into the discovery of a brand new type of killifish in Kenya. But this isn't just about another fish. This little creature is helping us understand millions of years of evolution and, well, the Earth's own history.
Exactly. And to really get into it, we've been looking closely at the scientific paper that describes this new species, Nothobranchius sylvaticus. It's published in Zootaxa.
Right.
And this discovery, it was made by an international team of researchers, including Professor Dirk Bellstedt, as part of the Off the Beaten Track project that's funded by the Volkswagen Foundation in Germany.
Okay.
So our goal today is basically to explore why finding this particular killifish is such a big deal. What can it tell us about, the story of life and the ancient landscapes of East Africa?
Okay, so let's start with the basics. When and how did scientists actually stumble upon Nothobranchius sylvaticus?
Right, so the fieldwork that led to this, it happened back in 2017 and 2018. The researchers were exploring the Gongoni Forest, which is in southeastern Kenya.
Ah, okay.
And that's where they found these unique killifish living in temporary swamps within the forest.
The name itself, Nothobranchius sylvaticus, pertaining to the forest in Latin, that really points to something special about where it lives, doesn't it?
It does. And what's fascinating here, like really fascinating, is that this is the first known killifish that lives its entire life specifically within a forest environment.
Huh. Really?
The first.
Yeah.
I mean, killifish are usually found in temporary pools, seasonal waters, that sort of thing. But this one is tied, really tied, to the Gongoni Forest habitat.
Okay, so they found these fish in forest swamps, but how did they know for sure it was a completely new species? What were the steps they took to confirm that?
Well, they used a couple of key methods. First, they did a really careful analysis of the physical features of the fish. Things like fin shape, colors, overall body structure. They used statistical methods, principal, component analysis to sort of pinpoint the key differences.
Okay, measuring things.
Right. But perhaps even more definitively, they also looked at the fish's DNA.
Ah, the genetics.
Exactly. Because DNA acts like this blueprint passed down through generations, right? So significant differences in the genetic code confirm it's on a separate evolutionary path. It proves it was a new species.
And that DNA analysis gave them some pretty significant clues about its evolutionary past, didn't it?
It certainly did. By looking at the evolutionary relationships and estimating when different groups branched off, that's a process called dated phylogenetic analysis, they figured out that the N. sylvaticus lineage diverged from its closest relative about 7.09 million years ago.
7 million years. Wow, that's hard to even wrap your head around. Why is that specific time frame so important?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, this evolutionary split, it gives us a kind of biological marker for the age of the Gongoni Forest itself.
A biological marker?
Yeah. For this distinct type of fish to have evolved and survived there for at least 7.09 million years, that forest environment must have been a stable habitat for, well, at least that long.
So this little fish is like a living record of an ancient ecosystem. Tell me more about the Gongoni Forest then. You said it's small but really old.
That's a key point, yeah. The Gongoni Forest isn't very large, only about 8.2 square kilometers. Tiny, really.
Wow, that is small.
But it's considered an ancient forest and a prime example of what's called the East African mosaic.
The East African mosaic, what exactly is that?
Okay, think of it like a landscape that's sort of a patchwork quilt stretching across East Africa, from South Africa way up to Somalia.
Okay.
It's a mix of different environments, mostly grassland, savanna, but with these pockets of forest scattered throughout. And the Gongoni Forest is one of these really old forest remnants within that larger mosaic.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this all connects. The fish's evolution is linked to how long the forest has been around, and the forest is part of this bigger East African landscape picture. But the research, it wasn't just focused on the fish, was it? There was a geological aspect, too.
Absolutely. That's crucial. Since about 2015, this research team has been involved in a much larger project trying to piece together the tectonic history of Central Africa over the last 20 million years or so.
20 million years.
Yeah. And they're doing this by combining DNA analysis of various fish groups. They actually mention Africa's famous cichlid fishes as another example, with very precise dating of rocks from important geological formations in eastern Africa.
Dating rocks and analyzing fish DNA. That sounds, well, like an unexpected combination. What's the link between those two?
Well, the crucial thing to remember is that the last, say, 5 to 30 million years, were a time of significant geological upheaval in East Africa. We're talking about the formation of the Great Rift Valley, for instance.
Right, the Rift Valley, huge changes.
Huge changes. These massive geological events dramatically changed the landscape, affected river systems, how water flowed across the land, paleo drainage. And these changes, in turn, would have massively influenced where aquatic life, like these killifish, could live, where they got isolated, and how they evolved.
Oh, okay, right. Here's where it gets really interesting then. So the scientists are looking for a connection between when these geological changes happen and when different groups of fish evolved or diverged.
Exactly. That's the core idea. And the discovery of N. sylvaticus provided another really strong piece of evidence for this connection. For the scientists, it was another instance where the evolutionary history within this Nothobranchius group seemed to match up beautifully with the ancient river and water flow patterns, those paleo drainage dynamics.
So the river is changing course, creating barriers.
Precisely. Think of it like how different river systems can isolate populations of fish over long periods. They can't interbreed anymore, and eventually they evolve into distinct species. And these drainage patterns themselves were directly shaped by the tectonic events that created the whole East African river valley system.
So this little killifish, living in its isolated ancient forest swamp, isn't just a cool new species, but it's acting as a biological marker.
The existence and, critically, the estimated time of divergence of N. sylvaticus provide biological confirmation that the Gongoni Forest has been a stable and isolated environment for millions of years. It somehow survived these massive geological shifts that reshaped the broader landscape all around it.
That is just fascinating on so many levels. But the article also touches on a more concerning side of this discovery, right? The conservation status of this new fish.
Yes, unfortunately, that's the downside. Because it lives in such a specific and incredibly small area, just within this one ancient forest, Nothobranchius sylvaticus is at a very, very high risk of disappearing. It's classified as critically endangered.
Critically endangered, wow.
Yeah, it really highlights how important it is to protect these unique and ancient ecosystems. They hold so much history.
It makes the discovery feel even more urgent, doesn't it? Knowing that this unique glimpse into Earth's deep history could be lost so quickly. Where are the actual specimens of this important fish kept now for study?
Good question. The article mentions that the main example, what scientists call the type specimen, has been placed in the National Museums of Kenya in Nairobi.
Okay, in Kenya.
And for comparison purposes, other examples, other specimens, are kept at the Royal Museum for Central Africa in Tervuren, Belgium. This ensures that these important scientific resources are safe and available for future research.
Okay, right. Let's try and pull all of this together then. We started by looking at what seemed like, a relatively small thing, finding a new killifish. But this deep dive has shown us so much more.
Absolutely. We've seen how finding Nothobranchius sylvaticus in this tiny ancient Kenyan forest gives us a unique window into understanding both how evolution works over millions of years and the dramatic geological history of East Africa.
Yeah.
The fact that the fish's evolutionary timeline lines up so well with the geological timeline, it's just a remarkable example of how life and the Earth's physical processes are deeply interconnected.
It's truly amazing how little fish can hold such profound clues about large-scale geological events, tectonic shifts. It really makes you wonder what else we might learn from the seemingly small and overlooked corners of our planet.
And that really raises a fascinating question for everyone listening. Just think about how these seemingly small discoveries in biology can unlock really deep insights into the history of our planet and how interconnected life and Earth processes really are. What other hidden stories, what other biological markers might be waiting to be found in unexpected places? It really makes you think about the value of exploring those off-the-beaten-track locations, doesn't it? The potential for new discoveries that could completely change how we understand the world around us.